I'll never forget the moment I felt that little picture of the Virgin Mary burn in my palm. I was there at my son's house holding my grandson who had just choked, and when I reached into my purse for a tissue, I touched the little image I've carried for decades. It was hot, not lukewarm, scorching hot, like it had been touched by the sun itself. At that moment, with the baby crying in relief in my arms and the whole family still in shock, I knew it wasn't just coincidence. The Virgin had answered my prayers in a way I never imagined. Let me tell you from the beginning, because this story didn't start on that Sunday of terror and miracle. It began months earlier, when I felt my heart begin to tighten in a different way. It wasn't a health problem. No, it was something much worse. It was the pain of watching my family fall apart right before my eyes. My name is Mary, I'm 68 years old, and for almost 7 decades I believed that a mother's love was indestructible, that nothing in the world could shake the bonds I had built with so much love with my son Robert. But then Jennifer came into our lives, and I discovered that there are some storms capable of shaking even the deepest roots of a family. Robert was always my pride. After my husband died, when he was only 15, the two of us became a team. He helped me with the bills, I helped him with his studies. He grew up right, became an engineer, got a good job. When he told me he had found someone special, my heart filled with joy. I was eager to meet the woman who had won my son's heart. My first impression of Jennifer was complicated. She was beautiful, well-dressed, polite in her words, but there was something in her eyes that made me uncomfortable. I couldn't identify what it was exactly. When Robert introduced her to me, at our traditional Sunday gathering, I felt a coldness that I tried to ignore. It's nerves, I thought to myself. She must be tense about meeting me. But the weeks went by, and that feeling didn't improve. Jennifer smiled in front of me, but her eyes never smiled along. When Robert went to get something from the kitchen, her smile disappeared completely. She fiddled with her phone, looked anywhere but at me, and whenever I tried to start a conversation about their plans, about the future, she answered with monosyllables. The wedding took place on a Saturday in September. It was a beautiful ceremony, I can't deny. Jennifer was radiant in her white dress, Robert happier than I'd ever seen him. During the party I tried to get closer to her, talk about recipes, about decorating the new house, about anything that could build a bridge between us. But it was like talking to a cold wall that only responded out of politeness. It was after the wedding that things really started to change. Robert, who always visited me at least twice a week, started showing up only on Sundays, and always accompanied. We never again were alone to talk like before, for me to know how he really was, if he needed anything. When I called during the week, it was always Jennifer who answered, saying he was busy, in the shower, or that he would call back later. The call back never came. Sundays, which were once my joy of the week, became an ordeal. I prepared lunch with the same love as always, set the table with the embroidered tablecloth my mother left me, made the pudding that Robert had loved since he was little, but the atmosphere was always heavy. Jennifer was on her phone for almost the entire visit, answered my questions with short answers, and worst of all, always found a way to cut short the stories that Robert and I shared about our life together. "Oh, Robert, you're not going to tell those old stories again, are you?" she'd say with a giggle that tried to be fun, but cut like a knife. And my son, my Robert, who always loved our memories, started to become quiet. He started not laughing at my jokes anymore. He started looking at the clock during our conversations. The first real stab came when I discovered that they had removed all the photos of our family from the new house. Robert was showing me the decor, and I noticed that there wasn't a single photo of us. Not from his graduation, not from birthdays, not from that trip we took together to the beach when he graduated. When I asked, he sidestepped the question, said they hadn't decided where to put the photos yet. But I saw in the corner of the shelf, well hidden, a picture frame upside down. It was our photo from last Christmas. The months went by, and I felt like I was losing my son little by little, not all at once, like when someone moves far away, or when there's a big fight. It was worse, I lost him in small daily doses. A canceled visit here, an unanswered call there, an averted glance over there. It was like watching someone you love drift away in slow motion, unable to do anything to stop it. The last straw came when I learned, through my neighbor Mrs. Carmen, that Jennifer was spreading lies about me. Subtle things, but venomous. She told the other women in the building that I was too clingy to Robert, that I didn't know how to give the couple space, that I was calling all the time and interfering with their lives. Worst of all, she insinuated that I was getting a little confused with age, forgetting things, repeating the same stories. When Mrs. Carmen told me this, my initial reaction was pure rage. A rage that welled up from my stomach and consumed my entire chest. I wanted to go there and say everything that had been bottled up for months. I wanted to tell Robert what his wife had been saying behind my back. I wanted to confront Jennifer and ask her to her face why she hated me so much, what I had done to deserve it. But that night, alone in my apartment, looking at the little image of the Virgin Mary that sits on my nightstand, I felt something different. A very gentle inner voice, telling me to wait, not to act on impulse, to trust that a larger plan was in motion, even if I couldn't see it. This little image of the Virgin has been with me since I was a girl. My mother gave it to me when I made my first communion, and since then it has been with me through all the important moments of my life. It was with me when Robert was born, when my husband died, when I went through all the hardships and all the joys. Whenever I needed strength, I talked to it as if it were a very close friend. That night, I knelt before the dresser where it sits and broke down. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I said everything that was in my heart, the pain of seeing my son drifting away, the sadness of not understanding why Jennifer rejected me so much, the fear of being alone in the world after having dedicated my whole life to my family. And then, with tears streaming down my face, I made a request that came from the very bottom of my soul. My mother, if I no longer have the strength to fight for this family, may you fight for me, do what is necessary to bring my son back, and for us to be a real family. If you watching have been through something similar, you know how difficult it is to keep the faith when it seems like everything is falling apart. But something told me I needed to trust, even if I didn't understand, so I decided I wasn't going to try to force anything anymore. I wouldn't keep calling incessantly, I wouldn't keep asking about visits, I wouldn't try to please Jennifer with gifts or compliments. I would just continue being the mother I always was, and let things take their natural course. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I woke up every day hoping the phone would ring, that Robert would show up at my door like he used to, that some sign would show me that my prayer was being heard. But nothing happened. Sundays continued to be cold, visits increasingly shorter, the distance ever greater. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now. Stories like this need to be told to show that even in the most difficult moments, when it seems like we've lost everything, there is still hope, and you'll want to follow other stories like this, of people who found the light at the end of the tunnel when they least expected it. It was one Sunday in May that everything changed. Robert called on Friday, saying that Sunday was the birthday of little Matthias, Fernanda's sister-in-law's son, and that they were having a party at home. He said I was invited, but from the tone of his voice, I realized it wasn't his initiative. It was one of those situations where someone is invited because it would be very strange not to invite them, but nobody really expects the person to show up. I thought about not going. I knew it would be another difficult afternoon, with Jennifer treating me with her usual cold politeness, Robert torn between being a son and being a husband, and me feeling like an intruder in my own family. But something pushed me to go, an inner voice saying it was important for me to be there. I arrived at their house at 2 in the afternoon. The party was already lively, full of people I didn't know, children running everywhere, music playing. Jennifer greeted me with her usual plastic smile, offered me a soda, and then disappeared into the crowd. Robert gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and immediately got involved in a conversation about work with some friends. I felt completely out of place. I sat there in a corner of the sofa, watching my family celebrate as if I were a stranger. A few times I tried to strike up a conversation with other guests, but I realized that nobody really knew who I was. Jennifer only introduced me as Robert's mother, never as my mother-in-law or Matthias's grandmother. Little Matthias was radiant with his newly turned 4 years. A beautiful child, full of life, running from one side to the other, showing everyone his presence. At one point, he came to me and climbed onto my lap, asking if I had brought him a present. I explained that yes, it was wrapped there on the table, and he smiled in that way that only children know how to smile, with eyes shining with pure joy. It was while we were talking that I noticed Jennifer watching me from afar. There was something different in her look at that moment, a kind of irritation mixed with contempt. She approached quickly, and told Matthias that it was better for him to go play with the other cousins, that I must be tired. The boy got off my lap, and ran off, and I was left there, feeling diminished once more. The afternoon went on in the same vein. Jennifer made a point of excluding me from conversations, always finding a way to make me feel out of place. When someone asked me something about little Robert, she quickly changed the subject. When I offered to help in the kitchen, she said everything was under control. It was a subtle hostility, imperceptible to those who didn't know our situation, but painful like a needle, slowly being pushed in. It was almost time for the birthday song when it happened. Matthias was sitting at the table, surrounded by all the children, eagerly awaiting the cake. Jennifer had baked a beautiful cake, decorated with characters from his favorite cartoon. They cut the first slice, placed it on his plate, and the boy took a huge bite, the kind only a child can manage to shove in their mouth at once. It was a matter of seconds. His laughter turned to despair. He began to choke violently, clutching his throat, his eyes wide with panic. The piece of cake had gone down the wrong way, and was completely obstructing his breathing. Chaos erupted in the room. Everyone started shouting at once. Matthias's mother completely panicked, screaming his name, and not knowing what to do. Jennifer froze, her hands to her head. Robert and the other men rushed over, but no one knew how to react. Some yelled to pat him on the back, others to turn him upside down, others to call an ambulance. It was at that moment that something inexplicable happened to me. All my maternal instincts, all the experience I had as a nurse's aide decades ago, all the calmness I had developed over a lifetime of caring for people, it all surfaced at once. I rose from the sofa, as if I were 20 years old, and ran to the boy. "Get out of the way," I shouted with an authority I didn't know I still possessed. I picked Matthias up, turned him face down over my left arm, with his head lower than his body, and began to administer firm but controlled blows to his back, right between his shoulder blades. 1, 2, 3 pats. Nothing. 4, 5, 6 pats. The boy was turning purple. At that moment, I felt a strange force taking over me. It wasn't just my professional experience guiding my movements. It was something bigger, as if other hands were working alongside mine, guiding me on exactly what to do. I turned the boy over again, placed 2 fingers in his mouth, and managed to touch the piece of cake that was obstructing his throat. With a precise movement, I managed to remove it. Matthias coughed violently, cried, but he was breathing. The sound of his breathing was the most beautiful music I heard that day. The entire room let out a collective sigh of relief. I hugged the boy to my chest, feeling his little heart beating rapidly, but strong. That's when I realized that everyone was looking at me differently. I was no longer the annoying mother-in-law, the interfering grandmother, the woman who interfered in the couple's life. In the eyes around me, I saw respect, admiration, gratitude, but the look that marked me the most was Jennifer's. She was standing about 2 feet from me, tears streaming down her face, watching me as if she were seeing a completely different person. It was no longer that cold, distrustful look she always had. It was the look of a mother who had just seen someone save a child she loved. Matthias calmed down in my arms, and I continued to hold him until I was sure he was all right. That's when I decided to get a tissue from my purse to wipe away his tears. When I reached into my bag and touched the small image of the Virgin Mary, that I always carry with me. It was warm, not lukewarm from the heat of my body or the nervousness of the moment, truly warm, as if it had been heated by an external source. At that moment, everything clicked in my mind. The desperate prayer from that night, months ago, the plea for the Virgin to fight for me when I had no more strength, the strange feeling that I wasn't alone when I ran to help Matthias, the precision of my movements, as if guided by a wisdom that wasn't entirely my own, and now, the warm little image in the palm of my hand. I knew, with a certainty that came from far beyond reason, that this had not been just an act of courage or professional experience. It had been a divine answer to my most desperate plea. The Virgin had fought for me in a way I never imagined would be necessary, putting a child in danger so that I could show who I really was. It seems terrible to think like that, and for a long time I felt guilty for this reflection, but over time, I understood that it wasn't the Virgin who created the danger. The accident would have happened anyway. What she did was prepare me to be in the right place, at the right time, with the right competence to make a difference. She transformed what could have been a tragedy into a moment of revelation. After Matthias had completely calmed down and returned to playing as if nothing had happened, I was getting ready to leave. It had been an overly intense afternoon, and I needed to process everything that had happened. I was picking up my purse when I felt a hand touch my shoulder. It was Jennifer. Her eyes were red from crying, and when she spoke, her voice was choked with emotion. "Mrs. Mary, I need to talk to you." She led me to the porch, away from the other guests, and there, for the first time in all those months, she looked me in the eyes for real. "I was wrong about you," she said, barely able to speak. "I was completely wrong. I thought that you wanted to control our lives, that you didn't accept me, that you would always be between me and Robert. But today, I saw who you really are. I saw a grandmother fighting for a child's life. I saw a woman who knows what to do when everyone is panicking. I saw the mother who raised the man I love," she continued, her words tumbling over each other. "I know I was unfair. I know I hurt you in many ways. I know I pushed Robert away from you without reason, and I ask for your forgiveness, from the bottom of my heart. That child could have died today, if it weren't for you." I listened in silence, feeling my heart warming in the same way the little image of the Virgin Mary had warmed in my purse. It wasn't the heat of anger or revenge at her finally acknowledging her mistakes. It was a warmth of relief, of forgiveness, of family reuniting. "Jennifer," I said, taking her hands, "I never wanted to be your enemy. I only wanted to be your family. I only wanted us to build something together, for Robert, for all of us." She cried even harder, and hugged me, a real hug, the kind you feel comes from the heart. From that day on, everything changed. Not overnight, because deep wounds take time to heal completely, but it changed. Jennifer started calling me during the week, asking me about recipes, telling me about her work. Robert started visiting me alone again. We started talking about our lives, about our memories. Gradually, the family photos returned to their house. First one on the shelf, then another on the living room wall. Then our Christmas photo took pride of place on the coffee table. Jennifer started including me in conversations, introducing me as my dear mother-in-law to her friends, asking my opinion on important things. I won't lie and say we became best friends instantly, because real life doesn't work like that. We still had some difficult moments, some tense conversations, some misunderstandings, but now we had a solid foundation of mutual respect to work through anything that came up. Most importantly, Robert regained his joy. He became that affectionate son again. He laughed at my stories again. He sought me out again when he needed advice. He later told me he had noticed the tension between me and Jennifer, but didn't know how to resolve it. He said he was torn between us, trying to please everyone, and ending up disappointing everyone. Matthias, thank God, suffered no lasting effects from the scare. But that episode created a special bond between us. He started calling me Grandma Mary, and whenever he saw me, he would run to hug me. Jennifer told me he spent a few days telling everyone that I had saved him, and that he wanted to be strong like Grandma when he grew up. Today, almost 2 years after that Sunday, that changed everything. I can say we have a real family, not perfect, because perfect families don't exist, but a family where everyone respects, loves, and supports each other. Jennifer and I have developed a relationship I never imagined would be possible. She asks me for advice on motherhood, as she is pregnant with her first child, and I can finally fulfill my role as a mother-in-law, the way I always dreamed, being a source of support, not conflict. The little image of the Virgin Mary is still with me, of course. It sits on my nightstand, comes with me in my purse when I go out, is present at all the important moments of my life. But now it has an even more special meaning. It reminds me that sometimes prayers are answered in ways we could never imagine. I prayed to the Virgin to fight for me when I had no more strength. I thought that meant she would magically change Jennifer's heart, that she would make my daughter-in-law accept me without anything needing to happen. But the answer came in a much deeper way. She gave me the opportunity to show who I really was. During all those months of suffering, I was focused on what I thought Jennifer thought of me, on the lies she told, on the way she treated me. But the Virgin knew that the problem wasn't just Jennifer's opinion of me. The problem was that Jennifer hadn't had a chance to see me in action, to see what I was capable of when it really mattered. That moment of crisis revealed my true nature not only to Jennifer, but to the whole family. It showed that I wasn't the interfering and controlling mother-in-law she imagined. I was an experienced, wise, courageous woman, capable of making the right decisions in the most difficult moments. I was the kind of person you want to have around when life gets complicated, and that changed everything. Not only the way Jennifer saw me, but the way I saw myself. For months I had felt useless, outdated, a burden in my children's lives. But that Sunday in May, I rediscovered my strength, my competence, my place in the family. Today, looking back, I understand that all that suffering was necessary, not because I deserved to suffer, or because Jennifer needed to mistreat me, but because only by going through that dark valley could I reach this place of peace and family harmony that we have today. The most important lesson I learned is that sometimes we need to trust in God's timing, even when that time seems cruel or unfair. Sometimes the answers we ask for come in completely different ways than we expected, and sometimes you have to go through a storm to reach the rainbow. To anyone going through a similar family conflict, to anyone who feels they are losing the people they love most because of misunderstandings or wounded pride, I want to leave a message. Don't give up. Don't give up praying. Don't give up loving. Don't give up believing that things can change. Sometimes change doesn't come when we expect it, or in the way we expect it, but it comes, and when it arrives, it brings a peace and joy that makes all the previous suffering worthwhile. Today, as I kneel before my little Virgin Mary, it's no longer to ask for help in despair. It's to give thanks for showing me that even in the darkest moments, love always finds a way to win.